While the Declaration of Independence expired for everyone to have life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness in the United States, the U.S. has not accomplished the political changes necessary to realize equality. Slavery wasn't abolished until 1865, and black males achieved the right to vote only in 1870. Women didn't get the right to vote until 1920, and it took until 1964 to ban segregation in public places and unemployment discrimination based on race. At present, the United States has one of the world's highest rates of incarceration. The culture of racism continues to negatively influence who can move out of poverty. White males have approximately a 300-year head start in getting ahead financially. To use a baseball metaphor, if one person starts on third base, did they actually hit a triple and deserve all the entitlement associated with that actual feat? The American dream was established as an expectation that hard work could lead to social mobility. With a mantra of bigger is better, business leaders have argued against putting any limit on what people might earn, with fear that it will stunt economic growth domestically and push entrepreneurs abroad. Meanwhile, in the world's population has grown approximately 10 times in the past 3 centuries. Having seen billions of people share the earth challenges the idea of unlimited growth and how can our biosystems be sustained while rewarding unlimited growth and consumption of the natural world. The War on Poverty legislation was introduced in 1964 by President Lyndon Baines Johnson, creating programs that became the modern day for the social safety net. In 1963 through 64, a Social Security Administrator named Molly Oakshey devised a poverty rate based on a formula using the cost of subsidized food budget. Income roughly 3 times the cost of that food budget was considered to be above the poverty line. The official poverty rate has remained an important longitudinal barometer. However, unequal inflation rates for necessities such as healthcare and housing has caused the census and analysts to create updated calculations known as supplemental policy measures and alternative to poverty measures. Using these more accurate calculations, researchers at Columbia University calculated the new poverty rates from 1967 to 2012 and compared to the official poverty rates, while the official poverty rate was stable for 12 to 15%. The updated measure shows that poverty rates was 25.6% prior to 1967 and had dropped 16% today. Furthermore, researchers compared the updated poverty measures for a 5-year time period from 2007 to 2012 with the government safety net programs such as Department of Housing and Urban Development, also known as HUD, and the Special Supplemental Nutrition Program for Women, Infants, and Children, WIC, and Temporary Assistance for Families, TANF, and others. Without government programs, poverty rates would have increased 5.1%. But with those programs, poverty rate rose only 1.3%. For more detailed information, you can see a 2016 report by the Office of Human Service Policy to the Assistant Secretary for Planning and Evaluation at the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services titled Poverty in the United States, the 50-Year Trend and Safety Net Impacts. While the updated measures are more accurate indicators, all metrics reveal information about how people are financially suffering. To inspire a community-wide intention to reduce poverty, Circles of USA emphasis getting children out of poverty is focused on necessary system changes. Instead of saying, let's get all children out of poverty right away, we recommend the goal of supporting 10% of children out of poverty as a starting place to provoke a tipping point to that over time could be more quickly to help the other 90% out of poverty. Plus, it's easier for people to withhold judgments about poverty when focused on innocent children. Now, the contents of what I just read is from circulususa.org, and they do really good work when it comes to checking out the poverty measures. There was someone that went to Capitol Hill and did a very powerful testimony about the poverty guidelines. And the testimony was so powerful that I wanted to make sure you got to look at it today. And I hope that we understand that the social poverty guidelines really need to be updated. And I want you to just see this because the video really does speak for itself.
Shame on you, and shame on me, and shame on each and every one of us who haven't rattled the windows of these buildings with cries of outrage at a government that thinks their office furniture is worthy of $40,000 a year and families and children aren't. Today I'm here to help you better understand poverty because poverty is my lived experience. And I'm also here to acknowledge the biased beliefs that poor people are lazy and the poverty is their fault. But how do I make you understand things like working full-time for $10 an hour is only about $19,000 a year, even though it's well above the federal minimum wage of $7.25 an hour? I want to tell you about a single mom I met who was working at a gas station. She was promoted to manager, and within 30 days, she had to report her new income to DHHR. Within 60 days, her rent bumped from $475 to $950 a month. She lost her SNAP benefits and her family's health insurance. So she did what poor people are forced to do all the time. She resigned her promotion and went back to working part-time just so she and her family could survive. I can tell you about being above the poverty guideline, nursing my gallbladder with essential oils and prayer, chewing on cloves and eating ibuprofen like they're Tic Tacs because I don't have health insurance and I can't afford a dentist. I have 2 jobs and a bachelor's degree, and I struggle to make ends meet. The federal poverty guidelines say that I'm not poor, but I cashed in a jar full of change the other night so my daughter could attend a high school band competition with her band. I can't go grocery shopping without a calculator. I had to decide which bills not to pay to be here in this room today. Believe me, I pulled myself up by the bootstraps so many damn times that I've ripped them off. The current poverty guidelines are ridiculously out of touch. The poverty line for a family of 3 is $21,720. Where I live, because of the oil and gas boom, a 3-bedroom home rents for $1,200 a month. So if I made $22,000 a year, which could disqualify me from assistance, I would have $8,000 left to raise 2 children and myself on. And yet the poverty guidelines wouldn't classify me as poor. I Googled congressman's salary the other day, and according to Senate.gov, the salary for senators, representatives, and delegates is $174,000 a year. So a year of work for you is the equivalent of almost 4 years of work for me. And I'm $24,000 above the federal poverty guidelines definition of poor. It would take 9 people working full-time for a year at $10 an hour to match y'all's salary. I also read that each senator has authorized $40,000 for state office furniture and furnishings, and this amount is increased each year to reflect inflation. That $40,000 a year for furniture is $360 more than the federal poverty guidelines for a family of 7. And yet here I am, begging you on behalf of the 15 million children living in poverty in the United States, on behalf of the 1 in 3 kids under the age of 5, and nearly 100,000 children in my state of West Virginia living in poverty, to not change anything about these federal poverty guidelines until you can make them relevant and reflect what poverty really looks like today. You have a $40,000 furniture allotment. West Virginia has a median income of $43,000 and some change. People are working full-time and are hungry. Kids are about to be kicked off the free and reduced lunch rolls because of changes y'all want to make to SNAP. Even though 62% of West Virginia SNAP recipients are families with children, the very same children who cannot take a part-time job because their parents will die without insurance. People are working full-time in this country for very little money. They're not poor enough to get help. They don't make enough to get by. They're working while they're rationing their insulin, and they're skipping their meds because they can't afford food and health care at the same time. So shame on you. Shame on you, and shame on me, and shame on each and every one of us who haven't rattled the windows of these buildings with cries of outrage at a government that thinks their office furniture is worthy of $40,000 a year and families and children aren't. I'm not asking you to apologize for your privilege, but I'm asking you to see past it. There are 46 million Americans living in poverty, doing the best they know how with what they have, and we, in defense of children and families, cannot accept anything less from our very own government. Thank you.